Well, you guys with me? Of course. There we go, guys. Let's talk saltwater fish. So here I am today. I'm back to give you a little update what's going on with my tank. And let's take a look. And last time I discussed my corals weren't looking good. And in fact, what I had ordered a couple new T5 bulbs. They were well past expiration. I mean, in my mind, expiration, you get about a year, 15 months out of T5s. I'm thinking now that you may not even get that much, but I had them way longer than I realized. But there's a number of things that could be wrong with corals, but lights is something you always want to take a look at. Anyway, after putting the bulbs in, the corals responded immediately. I mean, within that very day, and then the next day they were looking much better. Now my frog spawn doesn't look like as much as I used to have because I gave some of it away, but the frog spawn actually is doing quite well. With the exception, it's a little browner than it should be, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But it's got nice color otherwise. The lights have just come on, so that not everything is fully extended yet, but the Duncan's been doing fantastic since I got the new lights. The brain coral in the back there, that's a problem. Now, I've been losing that coral, and the mushrooms I took off have come back, and the mushrooms are now a nuisance. But now with the new lights, I'm hoping the brain will recover, but I gotta keep an eye on those mushrooms. But the lights are everything, and I'm in the process in the next month I'm going to get new LED lights of a higher caliber, so I can actually grow more difficult corals than I possibly could now. That little gorgonian there, I replanted that. That was kind of laying over in the back on me. The bubble coral is absolutely huge. I'm going to need to do something about it. And notice this, I'm having nuisance algae problem. Brown algae along the bottom there. Zoanthids, as always, have been spreading. I don't know if you looked at any of my videos from a year or two ago, a couple years ago, they're only on this one rock here, and they've actually spread all the way over here. And so, unfortunately, I don't have a different color. Although I went to World Wild Corals and got orange zoanthids, and let me take a look. Sorry for swinging around here on you, but oh, I do have those blues that are blue zoanthids that are kind of more bluish purple. They've been doing well. And then there's a little small group of orange ones that I've been growing out. So the big eye fish, the big eye squirrel fish, that thing is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's ridiculous. All my fish are about really healthy. But I wanted to talk to you about, with the exception of a long time cardinal fish, is gone. He died. And he died just a few days ago, and that fish has been with me since the beginning of the aquarium. In fact, I think I got him when I originally started my saltwater reef in 2005, 2006. I started with a 55-gallon, only had it a year, and they picked up this tank used. And then that cardinal fish was with me. Let's just say from 2005, that cardinal fish, 12 years he lived with me. So that's phenomenal. Phenomenal age. So the only thing I can figure is, he's an old fish. Fish don't live forever, and I had him for 12 years. He finally passed away. And I'm thinking, well, what's going on with the nitrates? Well, there's a couple things going on with nitrates. One, I had a fish die in this tank, and I don't know where he is. I did find a little bit of, I did see some of the crabs chewing up some white meat, and that's when I noticed my fish was gone. And so that kind of explains the bloom of algae on the glass and in the sand, fish dying and rotting away in your tank. The nitrates go up. And I did something else that was really foolish. I'm doing some things I had some trouble with my skimmer. It wasn't foaming up good. I fixed that. And I also had the skimmer on its the outtake is very noisy. And about a month or so ago, I had put a sponge there, and it quieted it right down. It was fantastic. It really made it nice and quiet. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, was the stupidity of that. I should know better. You know, throughout the history of reef keeping, or saltwater keeping, we went from, well, back in the 1970s and 1980s, underground filters. In the mid-80s, we went over to sumps, and we went to wet-dry filter systems. But when we started the hobby started to expand into people actually buying and selling and getting corals, and that's kind of happened around the turn of the century, even in the late 90s and stuff. We got away from those wet-dry systems because those bioballs that were not submerged but were immersed, in other words, you had trickling water in the sump, you had water trickling down over the bioballs, ends up being a nitrate factory. And if you know the nitrogen cycle, ammonia through the bacteria known as Pseudomonas turns to nitrites, Nitrobacter turns to nitrates, and that's about the end of the cycle in your aquarium, with the exception of what we know now for carbon dosing. But what happens is that buildup on nitrates, it's fine for fish, but it's not fine for, as we know, it's not fine for corals. So we have to keep the nitrates low. And the methods for doing that are exporting, well, one method is exporting the nitrates. And I say one method. Several ways to export nitrates is you can have a refugium, you know, where you harvest out, you know, you have an algae bed in the sump that you're actually growing on purpose, and you can keep harvesting out the nitrates. Of course, the other way to export nitrates is continually doing water changes. That's another method. Phosphates and other nutrients can be actually precipitated out using kalkwasser. So kalkwasser actually, sometimes you have to be careful about that if your nitrates can get, your nutrients get too low. I don't think it does anything with nitrates. I think it precipitates out the phosphates. But so exporting nitrates is one thing, and then of course nowadays the technique of using carbon dosing. I use the Nopox by Red Sea. Some people use vodka, some people use sugar. But anyway, carbon dosing is the method where you're going to encourage the bacteria that convert nitrates, and then they convert into nitrogen, and I don't know what else, but you know, whatever. But by carbon dosing, you can actually get those nitrates down. And I've been very successful using the Nopox doing that. But of course, when a fish dies, overfeeding, any of the other imports to the nutrients and nitrates, if it exceeds what you export, your nitrates will go up. So I had a couple things going on. I had the fish dying, and he just died, so I'm now at the point where I need to get those nitrates down again. Because of that, I got the skimmer going. The skimmer will export some of it, but of course not everything. And then this is the silliness of putting a sponge. By putting a sponge at the outtake of my skimmer. But that's where I'm at, and I kind of wanted to post this because Yeah, we may understand the nitrogen cycle, and I wasn't really intending on going through the whole cycle to explain that to everybody, but really to give you an idea of the thought process that goes on and what's wrong with my tank, and thinking through it, and sometimes you have to do a little detective work. And yeah, I had a fish die. That's going to drive the nitrates up. I have a sponge out that's immersed. That's going to drive nitrates up. So got to think about these things, and I wasn't quite clear in the head thinking about it all. So that's what I wanted to bring to you this time. Keep reefing, and keep thinking about what is going on in the aquarium, and do a little detective work now and then. Well, that's where I'm at today. I still got some beautiful colorful fish. I'm loving my blue tang, who's every evening he gets into a darker phase. I'm not saying he turns blue, but he gets to be pretty dark in the evening, and I think he's going to convert over to blue sometime. He keeps getting bigger and bigger. That squirrelfish is way big. The chalk bass is up there in the corner. He's just doing great. He looks great. The lawnmower blenny. And I'm thinking I wouldn't mind having some more fish now. I lost the cardinal fish, and I hadn't decided what else I want to have. Of course, I have the raw guarana. Wish you all great success, and we'll catch you next time.